for the grant. It's not doing, I don't know, it's not joining. Is it on there? Oh, okay, and so now I can hear. Okay,
Okay.
we're good. Sorry about that.
Good. Okay, continue on.
All right, so the second question I had, and I heard some conversation around it, but I'm still unclear, was having to do with the public hearing and notices. And I know that was one of the concerns that we'd all received correspondence about. And I think what I'm hearing is we don't know what the public notice requirements are. That'll be dictated when it's offered? Or
Yeah,
when does it, well,
if we're awarded the grant, then we'll receive a contract for the mayor's signature, and that will have those stipulations in there.
and will we have to have those hearings prior to that approval then?
No, that would take place, the contract would be to get the ball rolling, where we would have to sign the contract before we go out to bid. So a contract would be signed, and then there'd be an RFP put together that'd be advertised in the Billings Gazette. There'll be an interview panel that'll score the applicants, and then from there, we would have to have, I would imagine, at least 2 public meetings, but I'm not sure on that number.
But that would be after, but before it was awarded.
No, it would be
Before
after,
the RFP was awarded, I'm sorry.
it would be after, the public meetings would be after the RFP.
So what would be the purpose of the public meetings at that point?
The RFP is just the request for proposal.
I'm sorry, before the contract is awarded.
Well, the process is first, we get the contract. Second would be, we create the RFP and we advertise the RFP. And then we would interview candidates, select a candidate. And then from there, after that is when there would be the public meetings.
Okay, so we get the award of the grant first, then we do an RFP. When we get the award, they will tell us what hearings have to take place before we offer, before we, what's the,
Before we select.
We're awarded it?
before we award the RFP to somebody?
Correct.
Okay, coolness. So we don't need to address that here. And then the third thing that I had noted, I noticed both of you made the comment of workforce housing, which is what I'd understood. This actually says low-income housing and workforce housing. Is it really just workforce housing? Are we able to strike low-income housing from this? Because I think everybody's on board with workforce housing and the other just sounds subtext. And I think if it's workforce housing, let's keep it pure at workforce
It's
housing.
not strictly workforce, you can
Yeah.
have all kinds of people in low-income housing, so it would suit a wider.
And I
So we-
can speak to that as well for how they score the CDBG grants. They prioritize projects that are for low to moderate income individuals, and so that's where the low income and workforce piece comes in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So based on our discussion, the only thing that I see is as an amendment is in the final whereas, to say whereas the matching fund sources estimated between 20 and 25 will be donated by our LACF. And just put in a dollar amount and specify estimated. Thank you, Mayor. I have no further questions.
Okay. Any other, yeah, Teresa?
Yeah, I was just wondering, so, for Robin, I'm not sure where anybody is in the application process, but if there is a write-up, which would have to describe the project, right? James, I would imagine you're involved in that for city purposes, and you'll be reviewing all of it in step, right?
Sorry, I was making a note when you first started. Are you speaking to the RFP?
No, to the application process itself. So this is something that we want to see as it's described, right? I imagine somebody's writing that up, Robin. But you've been working with James all along on this, or have you seen it yet, James?
I haven't seen it
the
yet.
write-up
Actually,
for the
Mary
application.
Beth is the one that's working on it, but, yeah, I will
But-
look at that.
Yeah, you guys are in step, right? And you're looking after it for the city, because I know there's some questions that I got about, well, who's doing this for what? And it's the city's involvement along with, the gracious funds coming from our LACF.
Yeah, and James, I can share a copy of that grant application with you.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
No.
No? Let's, move on to the use of city-owned land permit, Art and Skilled Labor Day Arts Fair. Kim?
Yes, we wanted to go ahead and pursue having the Labor Day Art Fair on September 6th. So, I don't have a lot to say other than it's pretty normal. I did space out the booths a little bit. I removed about 10 booths just so that we had a little more space between or along the corridors where people walking stuff. And I talked to the public health and they didn't say that I had to like space each booth out. There were no really those special requirements. So
Okay.
I did ask for, I don't know, forgiveness is the word, but I did ask that, the fee be waived for the use of the park due to, snow removal and which goes beyond the $100 asked to use the park. Our snow removal costs were much higher than that. So we plow the parking lot, you guys, maybe we forgive us for, or waive the fee, $100 fee.
Okay. Discussion? Dave?
Well, actually, I was
Teresa?
waiting, I'm really trying.
Teresa?
I
I know.
catch you that way. So no, I was just wondering if it, I feel like it's a compensation if the depot has paid for the plowing through the winter, because I don't know what the reason was, and I guess that's not as important as you're asking compensation of $100 for something you paid over $800 in. I don't know if that's ever been done before. It's on an application like this, or if there's some other way that it could be compensated, but it seems reasonable to me.
That fee was waived 2 years ago on the same application for that reason.
Okay.
As it's stated at the beginning of the application, the Public Works typically removes snow in the parking area along that street 2 to 5 days after a snowfall, and they want to be in there and have it plowed right away. Obviously, Public Works is busy getting driving lanes for a couple of days.
And at the beginning of winter, it was plowed right away. Yeah, you told me that, Kim. It was several days that they plowed. You got to work and you said had been plowed. And I know I talked to the crew member who actually did the plowing. And then for some reason it stopped. I don't know if Jim knows why that. But it's that parking area where the restrooms are and the electric charging stations are, that's really city responsibility.
Yeah, so it was becoming a kind of a hazard, so we just plowed it. Because we needed to park there, or the community to park there, and. So
And that's not just the Arts Guild
no, it's
parking.
the library.
The library,
public-
some of the bank people park there, the electric car people park there, a lot of people park there. So it's really a city responsibility for that one-way street, in my opinion.
Dave?
I had a second question. In number 6, you talked about the porta potties being delivered on Friday. Is that you guys who are paying for those too and then leaving them up through? So you're selling yourself short. There's even more that you're offering and providing.
So what happens is, because the fun run happens on Saturday, and I'm a team leader I sign up for cleanup, which includes the toilet. And so we have the porta potties delivered Friday so they can be used Saturday for the fun run. They also use our mat for laying out the booths, because all the charities have to have a booth. And so they use our mat so we don't have to go back Sunday and remark everything. So they use our mat, and then we use our mat. but we do pay for the porta potties. Sometimes the foundation does help with that to offset it, and sometimes, I haven't had any luck with donations from the porta potty people. That's a mouthful.
I agree. So when we look at waiving the fee, what we're looking for is something that's repeatable, and when somebody else comes in the future and says, why did you waive it for X and not for me? It's really easy for me to say, here's $800 worth of receipts. That's what we waived their $200. From a paper trail standpoint, and James, I'll look to you to how do we do this? I would love to see that application where it says be waived. I'd like to see it in the paper trail that says in exchange for in-kind services, and whether that's just handwritten on the application and initial, but that gives us the paper trail.
It actually is, I think this application is a couple of years old.
This one?
Yeah, that was about the only change, but, oh, no.
No, this is the one, it says, it may be waived.
It does.
I just want to add in exchange for in-kind services, so that for paper trail purposes, we have that.
Gotcha. So basically, you'd like to see check mark that says when it's done.
Yeah, something along that line. And like I said, to me, just have the applicant scribble it in and initial it, and I think we'd be good, yes?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea.
Any other discussion?
I think it's gonna be busy, because I get calls every day for people wanting to get out, get their art in the booth, and have the public come buy things, and I think it'll be good. I'm wearing a mask because I still don't know where you've all been, but it makes me feel better. But I still think it's gonna be, people want to get out and get the vendors wanna sell their wares, and I think people are wanting to buy things. So at least that's what I see.
I'm glad you're doing that.
It's a wonderful event, and it does bring a lot of people into the community. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Everybody's good with the in-kind service? Okay. Good. City attorney contract up for discussion. Real quickly, I'm going to read you a timeline of the process that we went through. And hopefully that'll let you know that we did our due diligence. After receiving the resignation of city attorney, I began to assemble a hiring panel consisting of 5 people. That was April 6, 2021. Panel included a retired judge and attorney, a police officer, council representative, retired school administrator, and a county representative. Also had Glory Mahan there. She was the one that moderated the interview process. Advertisement for the position in local paper, Indeed, Montana Bar, and the sheriff's office put it out statewide. That was April 1st through the 26th. Meeting with the panel on April 22nd to review the processes. Meeting with the panel on the 27th to review the applications and review the interview questions that were created by the panel. We had 3 applicants in total. Everybody that was on the panel gave us questions that we then incorporated into the interview questions. Meeting on May 4th to discuss when the interviews would be scheduled in the scoring process. We came up with 13 questions that were reviewed by HR. May 25th, the panel interviewed 2 candidates and scored them, having the city clerk total the scores. Panel discussed the applicants, and on a 4-to-1, they chose Dennison Butler. Contract was drawn up and presented to Dennison pending approval of council's endorsement. To date, just to kind of bring you up to date, what we've paid to our attorneys that have stepped up to do civil and prosecution for the last 2 months, that total that we have paid them for 2 months has been $20,015. That's for 2 months. When we went through this process, talking with the panel members, our main concern was, how do we pay this person? And how do we do that? And we had several discussions about that, and we struggled with what would the salary be and how we would do that. And so we actually came to a conclusion, I came to a conclusion with Lonnie's help, the treasurer, that we would offer a 2-year contract at $65,000 per year plus benefits. The new city attorney would be in the city office all day Monday and during court. Would work 32 hours per week. That gives them an opportunity to continue their practice that does not conflict with any of the city work that he would be doing. And I talked it over with him, and he's ready to operate under that contract. So that's where that contract sits right now. We do have it up for action, and I just need your council's consent to sign the contract. Discussion.
When would he be starting?
He would be starting
June 28th.
June 28th.
Okay, assuming that the council agrees, June 28th.
Yes. Yes, Teresa.
I'm gonna find it difficult to, vote on an action without having seen the contract or even known in advance who this is or anything about, how, I have some questions about whether or not this is a good match because I've had other comments provided through the public. I don't know this individual. I've had some concerns raised to me, and, I just feel like this is the first I've heard officially. Usually, I get comments in from all over before I know anything, and I never know how to respond or how to research anything. So I find it kind of difficult without seeing the contract and understanding the fit with the city other than just hearing it verbally for the first time.
Pete, do you want to kind of fill Teresa in on the process that we went through? And
Well, we in good faith, thought it was a comprehensive process with the people on the panel having a diverse background in education and law and business and law enforcement. I have also received some questions about more knowledge about the individuals who applied, and I deferred those to our administrative capabilities and overall disposition of city business through the administrative process. And I've had support from my constituents on that, and I've also had questions similar to Tracy's.
And I will have to say that the questions that came up, one of the people that had questions had some very much misinformation.
I can tell you specifically what jumped out at me was that this person intends to keep their practice and work 32 hours a week for the city. Are we going to get the quality of work that is necessary if they're like full-time? I have no idea what their workload is like or how they would balance it. That's what struck me more than anything. And even that, I hadn't heard officially. So I don't even know if that's true. I don't know what's true.
I think we were really pressed for a salary cap, and that may have been part of the reason to allow this individual to earn additional money. But I'll defer to the mayor on that.
I don't know if you've hired an attorney lately, but I don't know that you can actually get one to work 32 hours and be paid $65,000 a year. When we look over at what we have been paying the other two attorneys for civil and prosecuting that were over $20,000 for 2 months, that kind of gives you an indication if you take that.
That's $120,000 a year.
$120,000 a year. Means that our budget is pretty much set, and that $65,000 is what we were paying the city attorney before. That kept us tied at that. So that's why discussing it with the retired judge and attorney, that was his big concern is, you know, you got to be paying $170,000 a year for that city attorney to do all that and be here full time. The option was to, get them in at 32 hours. That allows them to have benefits, and they would be able to do their other things that do not conflict with the city. Tom?
I don't have a problem with someone doing that kind of split, personal and public. But I would assume that the committee made it clear that, I don't know, would think that the city should come first if there's a crisis that we need to have handled. And the other question I would have is, again, I don't know this person, but is there law principally civil or criminal or?
He was all around.
All around.
So he had done civil, he had done some work for Department of Lands for the state of Montana.
BLM or something.
BLM, that was some of his civil background. He had done some other back east, and he is a defense attorney for the county.
He's a public defender.
Public defender for the county right now. So, I mean, everybody was vetted. I mean, everybody met all the criteria. Both the applicants that we interviewed were very, very close. And, like I say, the interview panel discussed and came up with a 4-1 for Denison. Dave?
Mayor, I noticed you mentioned that there were 3 applicants, but then you said there were 2 people interviewed. Are you
Right.
able to speak to why only 2 of the 3 were interviewed?
The other one did not, in its application, did not have the civil part of it, the background for the civil part.
Okay.
So that person was chosen not to be interviewed.
I am a little bit like Teresa. I don't mean to speak for Teresa, but I feel like a little bit of a mushroom here, meaning I've been literally, and not even in the packet was there a copy of the contract or a copy of a resume or anything. So literally the first thing I've heard about this that wasn't rumor, because if it doesn't come from the source in my book, it's rumor, is at this meeting. And I'm a little bit apprehensive, I'm a lot bit apprehensive about signing a 2-year contract without any time to do any additional research, because this is the first time I have a name and I still have no contract. So I don't know what we're being asked to vote on, and I don't see that we're going to have time to review that between that. So I think that the mushroom factor is working against getting my vote on board. The secondary factor that I have as a question is I'm not completely convinced that council is in favor of having a full-time attorney. I recognize the concerns over cost, and I realize that 65, is the salary, but then it's not just 65 compared to 120, it's 65 plus padding for benefits and everything else. So that's probably, I'm gonna guess, something in the neighborhood. Lonnie, you might be able to, is that 30%, or what are we looking at for our padding on top of salary when we
I
figure
don't
everything else
remember.
in? My guess is it's probably around 30 to 35%.
But I do want to mention that we've had budget meetings, and everybody, but I think you, as far as council members, have sat down on it. We've talked about the city attorney position and stuff, so like I said, right now, I'm not speaking for any council members, but it was discussed as a full-time position in the budget currently.
Okay. The other thing that I look at as a possible way forward is, and this goes back, and Mayor, you know my position on this, it hasn't changed in the 4 years that we've been working together, that I think one of the benefits of being the executive is that the executive gets to make appointments and have people that serve at their pleasure. Part of me also thinks that same benefit extends to the next person, whomever that may be, to fill that position. And so I'm disinclined to basically take away their ability to point somebody to work with by virtue of signing away the first 3/4 of their term to a contract. So even if we had a contract opportunity to look at, I would be inclined to amend the contract to extend through the end of the year. And at that point, like I said, I'm inclined to support the mayor's, I've always been of the position that the choice doesn't have to be the choice that I would make. That's your prerogative, and absent a compelling reason, I'm inclined to support the executive's decision to do that. Right now, there is a compelling reason in that I have zero information to make the decision on, but I think that can be remedied easily enough. But I'd probably still want to see if it's going to be a contract, that I'd want to see it. I know the max by state law is 2 years, but there's nothing that says it has to be 2 years. And I'd be less hesitant if we were just approving it through the end of the current term. And that doesn't preclude that person from continuing on. It just leaves that with the next executive, the same benefit that I believe you have as the executive.
James, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, what Dave was kind of alluding to, the costs and adding benefits to the cost compared to what we spent on contracting out in the meantime. And I just want to point out that me as staff, and I do believe others, have not only not had the same level of service of having the benefit of an attorney that's here and works for us full time. I haven't even spoken to Sam Painter. I've left him a couple of messages on one topic I really wanted to talk to him about, but we haven't had the support that we would normally have. So I do feel like if we had that same level of support over since we've used Sam Painter, our bills would be far higher than they have been on the civil side.
Mayor.
Teresa?
I may be taking this in a different direction, or you may mean the same thing, but I know that it's been difficult not having someone here to come in and meet with and go through, whether it's ordinances or resolutions or other, questions about contracts or other, legal documents. The thing is, a level of support. It sounded like the applicant that you have in mind, or the contractor you have in mind, would be here only on Mondays and for court dates. So to me, that seems like this person would still be out of reach. And there's nobody that would be local or present every day in the offices here and as accessible as in past, right? Is that correct?
And I discussed that with him, and he has an office right down the street. He's very easy to get a hold of. And he says it's just a matter of me running down to your offices or you run into my offices.
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea where it's
Right.
located.
Right. Tom?
I'd like to hear from the chief as to what he thinks about any potential that we're gonna see more need.
I think I would also agree with James as department head, especially with police officers. We would use our city attorney quite a bit to run things through, whether it be search warrants, whether it be other documents that we need to do, getting ready for court, that sort of thing. I'm not saying that the attorneys that are currently doing it are bad or not doing the job. I'm just saying that they're not at the same level that we've been receiving. And it's important that we do have that level that we're receiving. I also wanted to point out, one thing is that people don't like the fact that he's able to have his own practice. He can't have anything that would obstruct with the city of Red Lodge. And I agree with the mayor's statement and Pete's statement that an attorney that you're asking to work for an attorney is very low wages and not allow them to supplement that income, you're not going to get really what we're asking for. And I think that we need to make concessions. And then I'm also going to speak to the budget. As a department head whose budget is analyzed, overanalyzed, scrutinized about any kind of money that I get, I find it perplexing that we're sitting here paying $20,000 for services that we have, and again, not the attorney's fault, but expensive services, and we're willing to continue to do that and throw money to that, when my budget is scrutinized tremendously, and it seems as if now that's not an issue to take money and pay $120,000 for services that we're not currently getting now. We haven't had it for a while, for 2 months. And 2 months in a law enforcement aspect is a lot, and it's gonna take a while for this attorney to get on board. I don't know this attorney. I don't think I've ever met him. I don't think I've ever seen him, but I trust the process. The process was done where you have qualified people who are making that on behalf of the city of Red Lodge. I think it is something that we as citizens of Red Lodge, as well as people who have been put in charge of the public's trust, also to take that committee and believe what they have to say and who they've applied. We can't make people apply. I didn't sit on that interview panel. I was not one, like I said, I don't even know who this person is really. I don't know. But I'm trusting the panel that they made the right decision, that they get the information that they want. I think that the numbers can financially speak to the fact that it is necessary to have. We shouldn't be wasting money. We should continue to that process.
Chief, do you anticipate, with all of that's projected to go on this summer, do you anticipate a higher workload?
Absolutely. We're already seeing a higher workload. My officer's workload has increased tremendously.
So in other words, to have a city attorney here
Absolutely.
full-time is really pretty critical to your operation.
Absolutely. And it's not just, you understand that we don't work on an 8-to-5 job. Law enforcement is 24/7, 7 days a week. We are doing search warrants. We just did one just the other day, search warrants that need to be addressed by attorneys, maybe in the middle of the night. I'm like I said, we work with a relationship with an attorney. We understand where we're going. We trust their opinion to keep us as police officers, as civil servants, from being sued. We have instruction that our training we rely on, but it's imperative that we have that legal aspect that we can rely on. And I would just, obviously not telling the council what to do, I'm only advising. I would strongly suggest that the contract is very similar to, I don't know, I haven't seen the contracts, I would assume it's similar to what we've had. The mayor's put out very clearly as what the contract is. It was done through a panel. It's going to save the city money. It's going to bring continuity to the staff where we have ability to rely on legal situations. It's going to allow my officers to have legal representation when we serve search warrants to get the proper, to get a legal opinion before we go and do it. And I think it's imperative that this take place. It's nice to be able to sit on our hands and say, well, I'd like to know more. I believe, from being on boards and the positions that I've been on school boards for 8 years, I understand contracts, but we have to trust people who we elected, which are here, who the mayor has appointed on boards who have a wide variety, and I think it's imperative that we move forward with this. That's my opinion.
And as the chief said, this is essentially the same contract that Rebecca had, the last 2-year contract that we did with her, just with those changes that I just quoted.
Teresa has her hand
It's really not a matter of not trusting the panel, so I wanted to clarify that. And it is proper for us to ask questions.
Absolutely.
So let's not get too excited. I really, bottom line, it comes to, you want us to approve a contract, we haven't seen the contract. Could we please see the contract?
Sure.
And Mayor, that was going to be my suggestion. We've got 20 minutes before the meeting starts. If we can get a copy of the contract, I do trust the process. I appreciate the chief's comments to that. Having said that, I do still feel that very much we have a responsibility in approving a contract we haven't seen is a conflict that doesn't work for me. I do think there's a value, just as an FYI from a dollar standpoint, I think there's a value to not having a contract commitment. So I think it's not necessarily an apples to apples. But like I said, I can't approve a contract or authorize clear the mayor to sign a contract that I haven't seen, I think, and meet my responsibility that I have as a council member. So I'm in favor of wrapping this up sooner so that we have time to review that and then pick up the discussion.
Sure. Jim?
I do like the deal on the contract. My job prior to being under contract, every year when they change council people, they change a mayor, that I was brought up before them to say, well, okay, do we want to keep Jim Bush now? There's no job security in that, and I would not have taken this position under that standard. If you don't have a contract that gives you some guarantee of your job, that you're gonna, every time there's a change in this council up here, you're up for vote again, whether you get to keep your job or not, that's unfair, totally not the way to look at this. It's a staff member, no different than the rest of us, but we have to have some job security in our jobs too. And coming up every year to be approved by the council is not job security.
Tom?
I'm in favor of passing this contract as is. I trust you and I trust the members of the committee to search this person. And I think based on particularly what the chief says and the projections of the upcoming few months, we need to have somebody on board.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
if you and the committee are happy with this person, I'm happy with this person. Let's get it done.
You know, and this is the same process that we've used for every mayor that we've done. And that's why we stuck with the system, because
Yeah.
this worked. I'll be more than happy to have some copies of this run off. Yes, Lori.
One of the things, as a member of the committee, I have something to say. Of the two folks that we interviewed, this gentleman would fit the Red Lodge needs, fit the Red Lodge culture better than the other gentleman. They were both well qualified on paper and in books, but this gentleman would fit the Red Lodge culture, and that's extremely important. If you have two people equally qualified, one who fits the Red Lodge culture, in my opinion, takes precedence, because that's very important. To understand how things are done in Red Lodge, and that's a very important thing, because we're different than most places. And I think that this gentleman, who does have an office in a block away from here, and he's committed to being here at some specific times, and we talked about it as one of the issues, and he would be available to us if we needed him.
And I will say that either one of them would have been a great attorney for us.
Yeah, and Mayor, I want to make it clear that, of course, you have the executive decision. You're just asking us to approve the contract and that you would like to offer this person. So for me, again, it just goes back to seeing the
Yep.
contract. That's what I'm
Obviously,
responsible
what you're doing
for.
is approving me to sign
Right.
on behalf. And I do want to say one thing, and this kind of addresses what Dave was getting at, that, you know, there will probably be a new mayor starting the first year, and that's why I took myself out of this. I observed the whole thing. I had Lori run the whole thing. Lori asked the questions. The board made the choice. I didn't make the choice. So that's why I did it that way, so that person, I'm not bound to that person. The panel is the one that chose that person, and I'm out of it.
I appreciate the information. Thank you.
So, and I hope that whoever takes this position in the future will do everything exactly the same, because the system does work.
And I've been a part of that process with a couple of the hirings, so I'm not unfamiliar with how it works. And like I said, I do trust the process. I differ a little bit from Jim's opinion, not that I disagree with Jim's opinion, just that I understand that an attorney position is a little different than public works and some of the other positions. I'm also, in my mind, I thought there was still going to be a conversation about what was going to be best for us. If we look at the number of Class 2 cities it's been a month or two since I've looked at it, but of the 45 or 50 that there are in Red Lodge, cities of the third class, or third class, I believe is what we are. But anyway, doing a comparison, the latest information that we were able to determine is that 7% of them have a full-time attorney. So cities like Red Lodge, out of 50, what that means is there's 2 that have a full-time attorney, and we're one of them. And so there's part of me that says, I want to have a discussion about how those other cities are doing it and what they're doing that is saving them money and how that it works. And we've kind of leapfrogged that decision with an action that presumes we're automatically going that way. And I guess I wasn't on board with the, yes, that's automatically what we're doing. And this is, in reality, the first opportunity we've had to voice that question or that concern. It hasn't come up as a, hey, do we want to do this? Are we moving forward? You outlined a schedule, which I appreciated, knowing that's there. And I had some awareness that something was going. My first real awareness was at the last meeting when you said, hey, we've got somebody we're ready to make a contract to. And I think you picked up on the, oh, this is news to me, and we are going to remember to involve council in this. So,
Well, and you do have to understand, it is my job
oh, I
to
understand.
do
Yeah.
that. And when we went into this with the panel, the discussion was made. Are we going to go with a full-time attorney, or are we going to go with what we have right now?
Well,
And that was made not knowing that we'd even get any applications advertising it at $65,000 a year.
And the reality is, and again, due probably to the dollars, we aren't getting a full-time attorney. We're getting a designated attorney who's here. I mean, it's not a full-time attorney. I'm completely comfortable, just because I know the laws that govern attorneys, that he's going to remove himself from positions that are a conflict of any sort. So that's less of a concern to me. In my mind, I'm trying to go back to one of the contracts we had offered before for the whole kit and caboodle was a set dollar amount that was actually less than 120,000. I want to say that turned out to be, my recollection is that was under 100,000. It was in the low 90s, I thought.
96.
So 96 for that one. And to me, that contract, similar hours to this actually, was very similar to 32 hours, but that contract, that arrangement came with a non-binding element to it, which again has real fiduciary benefits to have. And so that to me is, again, I'm kind of looking at that with the spur of the moment, because that was a money cost savings analysis too, without a contractual obligation to it. So, and I said, a city attorney is a little bit different job than a public works director, in all sorts of ways, but.
Well, and I could break that up, with that person doing the prosecuting right now. 7,065 for April, that was from the 14th to the 30th. May 4th to May 28th was 9,270.
But that's doing it on an hourly basis, not under the original proposal that was put forward. And I'm glad Pete's memory is, that I was going to look up the old one, but.
Can I just make a comment as staff?
Mm-hmm.
So back when we had contracted attorneys, it didn't work for staff. We couldn't get answers when we needed them. That's why we brought up for staff. It is just so much more beneficial for us to have somebody here. When our previous one was here, she answered, I mean, we were going to her all of the time. If we were going to Sam all of the time, he's an awesome attorney, but he has other stuff going on. And even when we were doing the contract, not currently, but when we had a contract, it took us a while to get stuff back. And then it got to the point, and I think before even I stepped in, where things were just bypassed and didn't even go to them because they didn't want to wait. So then, as we found, some stuff never got looked at by attorneys. So from a staff standpoint, a full-time attorney, I think, is way more beneficial than a contract.
And I will say back then also, ordinances and resolutions were not
We're
yet
not going
run through. And in the past 3 years, we run all of the ordinances and resolutions in the city.
And also, I was gonna mention that, so I'm glad you did, but you mentioned that before.
Mm-hmm.
The staff needs access, as do the police department need access. They don't need it tomorrow or Wednesday, they need it tonight, when they're about to do something serious.
Yeah.
And we've had some serious things,
And
so.
the judge did bring that up too, on, as far as for him as well, he brought it up during budget
Right.
discussions, but.
I'd also think that what Dave brought up here is that, I mean, other towns our size, and they say, well, we don't have a full-time, or we have a full-time. I don't think any of them are full-time, because I think in the city attorney, unless it's Billings or Bozeman or somewhere, they're not gonna make enough money, basically, to be honest with you, just working for the city. They're gonna have to take on some private business. However, it'll be civil stuff. It won't be criminal stuff. They're not gonna be, running off to, Helena to, defend a criminal case. So I see no problem with that at all.
And one thing we have to look at, and through my opinion, is that regardless of the size of Red Lodge, this is an extremely vibrant community. It is busy, and busy means law and law enforcement. So based on our population versus other communities of the same population, I think the energy here regarding law and law enforcement is at a much higher level. And the ability to have somebody in-house and accessible is a great benefit.
Let's everybody take some time and review the contract.
Thank you. See you in 6 minutes.
There's another copy. Send it.
I think that's.
Oh, my original.
Keep that as well.
Did you adjourn us?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so
Journey.
we're adjourning for 6 minutes?
We're adjourning for 6 minutes.
You're the only one.
Oh, yeah.
I hit record and it kicks me off. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Larson,
Here.
Fratelli,
Here?
Eaton, Lyman,
Here.
Mahan,
Here,
Westwood,
Here.
Whistler. Here.
Minutes of May 11th and 25th.
move to approve the minutes for the working session of May the 11th as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Fratelli,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler. Yes.
Move to approve the minutes of the regular session of May 11th as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Fratelli,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler. Yes.
Move to approve the minutes of the working session for May the 25th as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Dave.
Mayor, I have a concern with the minutes. I understand the guiding requirements as far as legally comprehensive minutes, et cetera. And I mean my comments not as an indictment on anybody, but I had a concern at what appeared to me to be a selective selection of the comments on item number 6, which was the discussion about the Police Ordinance Commission. In reviewing my Robert's rules and approving minutes. My understanding is that it is the responsibility to be able to propose a solution in order to propose the minutes. I had reached out last night when I first saw this and raised my concern. I have not seen an update to it since then. So my proposal would be, I would like to amend the minutes so that item number 6 says, refer to the attached transcription, and that we have a transcription of the conversation included. That takes out any issues or concerns about selectivity and basically takes you off the hook for choosing what fits and what doesn't fit. So I move to modify the minutes by removing the comments in number 6 and saying refer to the attached transcription.
That sounds like a reasonable adjustment. You proposed a solution to something you believe was inappropriate or biased as far as what was reported in the minutes. And I don't think that that's a lot of effort to modify in the minutes, within the minutes. It would be much more accurate.
So I've actually taken that and made a motion out of it. So the mayor is waiting to see if there's a second, and then we'll discuss it.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion.
What I just said.
Again, I just want to add that I appreciate Lonnie and the work she does. And I am a part of a couple of boards where the meetings are mostly transcribed. And as I looked at it, and I thought, if I were in Lonnie's position, what would be the best way to remove her from the spotlight in the situation? And so that was the motion that I came up with.
It would be very easy for anything that would be put down there to look like it's biased in either direction. That's not a comment on Lonnie's efforts and good work. It's really that there was a lot that was said and a lot that went around. So I think it would be very accurate to just at that point plug in the transcript or a link to the transcript at that point for that figure on number.
So what you're saying is a link to the recording,
Mm-hmm. Or to just that portion of the discussion.
or are you saying that you want it fully
You want it fully
transcribed on
transcribed?
paper?
I think that whereas this is a written record, we should have a transcription of that section of the meeting. Otherwise, I'm just looking at years down the road. Again, I'm looking at these minutes are basically a record of our meetings. And I don't know, given the nature of this particular conversation, how else to truly capture, because if we had anybody sit down and go through that, I'm sure that there would be parties that looked at it and say, that's not what I heard from that meeting. That there's going to be people, I am confident that there were all sorts of people who were witness to that conversation or part of that conversation, and that if you were to take witness statements from all of them, that they would all vary greatly as to what was said. And so I think a written transcription, since the form of this is a written transcription, I think that's what it ought to be. I'm thinking if we just exclude it.
Are we sending this out to be transcribed? Because I don't transcribe. Per law, I don't have to.
And I'm okay with that. So that we'd have to come up with another way to accommodate that.
Dave, what exactly are you opposed to here? I'm not getting it.
So
Do you have concerns about what was said in public comments?
no, actually it was the council discussion, and the only comment that's reflected in this entire conversation, as I read it, was a comment by Kristen Cogswell and a response by Chief Wells that I said, I looked at this, my first response, I was disappointed as if this was the summary of the conversation. But then I turned my focus to what is an appropriate way to fix that. And if so, the answer is we need to have someone else transcribe it. I'm open to that, whether that be a volunteer, whether that be a paid service. In 4 years, and even some time before I was on council looking at it, this to me came across as the most skewed summary that I'd seen. And again, I'm sure that from my personal bias and part of the conversation.
Well, I can pull up past minutes where I've done work session minutes by just giving a summary. Public comments, though, are a little different. So.
Yeah.
I'm
And
gonna-
I recognize that. And like I said, I tried to look at it and say, how do we fix it? So I'm open to conversation.
Can you explain to me what you're trying to fix? I don't understand.
And why would you pick this one out instead of previous ones?
Because this is the one that felt the most skewed to me. I'm assuming that you both
Felt?
read the minutes.
Felt?
So out of a 45-minute conversation, there were two comments. A comment by Kristen Cogswell and a response by Chief Wells that said, thank you for proving my point. I think if anybody who was not present at that meeting were to review that, that does not in any way, shape, or form represent the whole of that conversation.
Lonnie, do we have other
That's my
minutes that refer to the transcript too?
No.
Only many
In
years back.
In the past, there was one regarding, was the Bear Creek issue, and we had that one sent off, and that was like 20 pages of public comment that was transcribed. That's the only time since I have been here in this position that any minutes were transcribed. So in all fairness, in all of the work sessions, I get a summary of what's discussed. If you want me to do 45 minutes of discussion of rambling, going back and forth, I don't see how that is beneficial for my time. The recording is available. We're working to get it onto the website with our IT people. And if somebody questions what's in writing, they can listen to what was said. But it's your guys' minutes. You guys tell me how to do it.
Before Teresa speaks, and I guess where are we gonna get the funds to get the bill professionally transcribed? I guess we take it out of
I don't know, but I want to hear what Teresa has to say.
So
Teresa?
I don't agree that it has to be the written transcript because this is a written document. I mean, we're in the day and age where everything's got links. So if we could get the verbal, loaded to the website, I would be happy with that, but that's just me. Where they could listen to the conversation. It was very lengthy. I've been in your situation where I've had to take minutes and try to list and remember what was the most important things that were said, and it takes a lot of time. I get that. And it's a very difficult job, so thank you. But I think in all fairness, we had a lot of other comments that were made that were even more relevant, like, why don't we form a subcommittee, which we've done, and we're moving ahead. So that was an important point, that, we have not come to any, working session. We went round and round. It was a difficult conversation. We decided to move ahead with this subcommittee. To me, that seems important.
And I can add that in there.
Well,
Yeah.
But like I said, it's your guys'.
So let me, in listening to the comments, let me modify my motion to be as such. That the comment section in number 6 be removed, that it be replaced with a lengthy and spirited discussion took place, a link follows. And I'm okay with that, because then we aren't playing, I don't know what the God/editor/whoever, but we're not playing a role. We're allowing people to review it and form their own conclusions, which I think is the purpose here. So I'm okay with just removing it all together and saying a discussion took place, a link follows.
Right.
I'm okay with that. So move.
So instead of having it transcribed, just to remove comment, public comment, and write the attached link for the verbal.
I would say a lengthy discussion took place, see the link. That would to me would be a fair representation of what happened.
Okay.
But that's only a motion and it's lacking a second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? We'll vote on the amendment.
Curtelli,
No.
Lyman,
No.
Mahan,
No,
Westwood,
Yes?
Whistler.
Yes.
Yes.
Simple majority?
Well, it's not a majority, it didn't have 4 yeses, so it fails.
So it's not a resolution or an
Or
ordinance.
it
It's not a resolution or an ordinance.
I need to look at my charter. My understanding is anything we vote on requires 4.
I think it was a resolution or ordinance. I'm not
It
sure.
says resolution or ordinance. Okay, let's go to the original minutes.
Would you like me to repeat it?
No, I think we got that, and we had a second on it. So may we have a vote on the minutes, please?
Kelly,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes.
Westwood,
No.
Whistler.
No.
Okay. Is that it for minutes, Cory?
Yes, that's it.
All right. Let's go to warrants payable.
Warrants payable. Boy, I hope I can get this one passed. Warrants payable this month are high, $410,000, $410,067.49. It's high because there were multiple payments to our bonds that we have, which is standard. But the one that stood out to me proves how busy all of our employees have been, because MasterCard was billed us for $14,393.95. That just shows how busy all the workers have been here. The Northwest was still down, way down, $12,077.95. Republic Services was up $39,026.14, and I was disappointed that Republic Services stopped pickup for 4 days without notifying anybody at the city. And I'm sure that they have been notified that that was not a good idea to do. So move to approve the total of warrants for $410,000, $67.49. And Tom helped with the signing on that. Thank you, Tom. Are you going to second it?
I second it.
Okay.
Okay, discussion on warrants payable. Dave?
Lori, could you please restate your last comment about services being stopped for how long? And was there a reason given?
There was no reason given.
It was over the over the holiday, and they didn't finish a route on Friday. They were short drivers. They finished the route though when they did come back on Tuesday. They did finish up that route.
Okay,
They
so
did not pick up for 4 days, but they didn't tell us in advance that that was going to
I
happen.
know
don't think
that
they told
Monday's
staff. They
included
did
on their
tell-
contract, so it was basically it resulted or it originated from an unfinished route before the weekend.
Right, but they finished the route on
All right.
when they came back, so.
Yeah,
But the trash,
communication would have been better.
stayed out on the streets for 4 days,
All right, thank you.
which the Bears had fun with.
Thank you for that update, Lori.
Back to my motion, please.
Roll call.
Fratelli,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes,
Whistler.
Yes.
Officer reports.
I believe that did I send the reports to you as far as,
I didn't see
I
anything.
apologize if that didn't get done. I'll take responsibility for that.
Okay.
I'll just give you a report. Our officers, like I stated earlier, our officers are busy. We've got an increase. Some people have kind of been, well, the moose out of their house to go and explore. We've got a lot of people in town. Obviously, tourism is up, as you can see. It's harder to get across the streets, and if you're going across Broadway, you're gonna make a right-hand turn to get across, because if you wait, you're gonna be there a while. Officers are doing a good job. Like I said, we did do a search warrant. We've had some pretty violent type things, some crimes that we've had. Nothing major as far as violent, but our domestics, our DUIs, I consider them violent because there's innocent people that get hurt from them. Our DUI processing's gone way up. I think, actually, I'm just gonna use him because Officer Webb, I think, currently himself this year in 6 months has 27 DUIs. That's a lot for an officer. That's about 4 to 5 hours of paperwork per report, as well as all of the other duties. That's just one of my officers. We're seeing a lot of drinking, a lot of driving that has increased, which creates a lot of paperwork, which creates a lot of attorney costs, which creates a lot of everything. So we've been busy. And again, I do apologize. I will get that, even though I wasn't here for this meeting. I will have my administrative assistants send out those reports for you so that you do get them for this one.
All right, thank you.
Chief, may I ask you a question about that so-called shooting of a bear?
Okay, I can address that
I'm sorry.
briefly.
Yeah.
So I can't divulge criminal justice information if I don't know. So if you were to do a crime, I can't tell you other people about it because we have courts and things. Now, things that are entered in the court are public information. There was a bear. I was advised by Fish and Game and other people that a bear had been shot. And there was actually some concern that Red Lodge Police Department did not cite that individual for shooting the bear. So I will briefly explain how law works. If, Glory, you received a speeding ticket and I got you on radar speeding, I can write you a citation for that. But I don't get to call the county over and say, hey, I got her speeding, write her a ticket. And hey, Highway Patrol, I got her speeding, why don't you write her a ticket? I don't get to do that. It's called double jeopardy. A person only gets charged for one crime. And what we normally do in a situation like that is we should go with a higher charge. If what was a misdemeanor violation, it would be very minuscule. It would not be on a criminal history. It would be a minimal fine, and that's where it would go. If 2 citations were written for an offense like that, if that individual were to come to city court and plead guilty and pay the fine, he could not be charged for killing that bear. Okay? So those are legal questions that we have to know in law enforcement so that we do the right thing. Even though some people say Red Lodge Police Department may not have done anything in this and they're turning a blind eye to it, could be further from the truth. We're making sure that judgment and that he has that day in court, like everyone deserves, and that he's held the highest fine. Rather than getting off on a $50 city ordinance fine, he's gonna face full consequences with the state of Montana, which if he did do it, it'll go on his record.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief, I appreciate that.
So, Chief, could you please explain to me how I might get that answer rather than waiting for a council? There were people that reached out to me, and I have no idea what the circumstances or the consequences were. And Kelly asked as well. How should we ask next time so that we can get an answer?
So, unfortunately, everyone in today's world thinks that everyone has a right to all information about everything and everybody. That's not the case on that. And so Kelly's actually the first one who reached out to me on that. I had not received any public comment whatsoever on that. Matt Eaton, who is the game warden, reached out to me just before his wife reached out to me.
Right.
So as far as people coming to me, there was nothing.
I did.
When did you send an email? Because I was gone all week, the week prior.
It was either yesterday or this morning. I agreed because Kelly was leaving, so I said I would follow up. And so it's that it's not the personal, information that we want. It's that how can we get the information so that we can answer people that come to us as council?
Okay, well, sometimes you just have to say, we have to wait until the court rules on it and it becomes public knowledge.
Yeah, that's good
Okay.
to know. That's fine.
So that's how it works. In today's world, everybody wants to know everything right away, and we're in a society and where that happens.
Right.
But in the criminal justice system, that can't happen because we have to preserve everyone's rights. Everyone is presumed innocent until found guilty.
Okay.
They get their day in court. And upon that time, then the public gets to know. And so it's not that we're trying to keep information from people, we're trying to respect people's rights, and we're trying to do it the proper way. Because if we don't, we're gonna get sued. With me, not me, the city of Red Lodge. And so we have to be careful when we do that. And hopefully that, this maybe answers some questions in the future as to what goes on. But the time of, hey, I heard you guys were over at my neighbor's, what happened? I can't tell you.
Yeah.
You saw me there. You may have seen me carrying out a body. I still can't tell you what went on.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a process that we have to follow.
Okay.
And a process is long, may take 6 months, may take a year.
I think it's just more about the anxiety that somebody discharged a firearm in the city limits.
Okay, and the other, okay, I gotta be careful. I gotta be really careful.
Yeah.
We have to, first of all, discern what a firearm is. And I'll just leave it at that as to what a firearm is. Okay, and I can't say any more than that. I would say wait, and we may find out. But the thing is, even if let's say I went out and discharged a firearm on my own time, not in uniform, just because I thought it'd be a good thing to do in my yard, it's still a process that has to take place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes.
Thanks for the explanation. That's very good
Dave?
because if the word is out on the street, of course, everybody exaggerates everything and
Yes.
puts their own spin on everything. And by 2 or 3 days later, it's completely blown out of proportion.
Yeah, and honestly, if I were to chase all Facebook comments or, that's all I would be doing, is sitting on Facebook. And this, chasing down rumors and saying, that's not true, this is true, which I can't do legally.
Dave?
Going back to your initial report and talking about the large increase with DUIs, and you mentioned the paperwork and of course, obviously, the potential risk to life and limb.
Mhm.
Is there something that is appropriate for us to do? Are we working with any of the other agencies? What are we doing to help, other than citing people? What are we doing? I know one of your founding principles is compliance rather than punitive.
Yep.
What are we doing to help improve that
So
situation?
what we've done is we've got officers who do on occasion go to the bars. Now, it is not, and I do not condone officers standing in bars and counting drinks that people are having. That's not what we're here for. It's a legal substance. It's meant to be drank. People can have more if they want to. Now, the bar owner or the beverage seller has a responsibility to shut them off when they have too much. And we're there to provide that with them. And I've offered my services to all the places in Red Lodge that serve alcohol to give classes.
If you need backup, call me, we're here. If you set somebody down and you need backup, call me.
It's people's personal choices. We're doing a good job with educating. Everyone knows, don't drink and drive, but unfortunately, not everyone does it. So it's important for my officers to be proactive and to get them off the streets for the reason of saving innocent lives, because we know that a lot of times it's a family who's coming back from a recreational event that gets killed, oftentimes. And there's the innocent victims, and we don't want to see anybody, even someone who took too many beverages and drank, made the wrong choice, we don't want to see them harmed either. So our job is to keep them from harming other people, harming themselves. Our guys are doing a good job. We work very well with the county, with Highway Patrol, and even Forest Service. Forest Service is one of our partners that we work with on a regular basis as well. So that's kind of.
I just wanted to give the opportunity for that conversation too, about what we're doing to help decrease that number too. So thank you.
Yes.
Chief.
Yeah, so as, now that we're telling secrets, you didn't know if you could say this or not in public. We pass out officer cards. Officer Webb goes through a lot. He passes out cards and says, if I can help, let me know. And so the bartenders know, we're there for their safety as well. We want to make sure that we protect them as they're serving beverages to people. So our goal is just really protect as many as we can, but we have seen an increase in DUIs.
Thank you.
Is that increase in DUIs, is that young people, out of towners?
We could probably, to answer that, I don't know. I would say that it's around the 30 plus and up is where we're seeing it.
The kids drink at home.
All right.
Thank you. Mayor's comments. As you know, we had an opening on the police commission. Steve Roy has stepped down. We received 2 applications on that, and I have decided, with council's consent, to appoint George Plow.
Oh, good. He's got good background.
Very good background.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor, in the past, when we've had these appointments, we've generally seen the letters of interest. Having not seen that, can you just give us a summary of why you selected George and what ran out to you?
George reached out to me actually before the vacancy occurred, so he'd be very interested in doing that. I actually wanted to get him on the city attorney or the police chief interview panel. He was insistent on being on the police commission. The other person came in and is very qualified too, but I feel George is the best pick.
George will be excellent.
Yes, he will.
Yes, he will. He's got a tremendous background.
So I'll take a roll call vote on that.
I need a motion.
So move to approve George Plow as the mayor's appointment to the police commission.
Second.
Third,
Any more discussion on George?
excellent.
Roll call.
Curtelli,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes,
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Public comments. Anyone may address the council at this time on any topic within the city's jurisdiction, not specifically on this agenda. As I said before, please state your name, address of your residence, and it will be kept to 3 minutes.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Mike.
Michael Keys, 408 South McGillen. Any plans on potholes? Especially the Great Lakes sized ones.
Yeah, Jim left, but I do know it's on their schedule. So, okay. Any other public comments?
This is Hope Smith, 517 North Hauser. I think it's important when you're getting ready to vote on the new city attorney that you do consider Dave's suggestion of a trial period through December to give the next mayor the opportunity to help get involved with choosing a city attorney. The community wants to back the mayor and the council, but when there's no transparency on hiring positions such as the city attorney, by sharing the criteria to even pick that city attorney, and not the actual scoring, but the criteria, it's difficult for the community to get behind some of the decisions that are made. And I hope that the search for a new police chief is more open and more transparent, and we at least know the scoring rhetoric, not the actual scoring again, but just the scoring rhetoric. And also, I have a concern about the fact that when you were voting on the minutes, from what I understand from reading Robert's Rules of Orders, it does take 4 votes to pass a motion, including on minutes. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Public comments? Public comments. Move to old business, resolution 3576, surplus property. Who wants to bring that one forward?
Move to approve resolution number 3576, a resolution of the City Council of Red Lodge, Montana to declare certain municipal property as surplus property.
Second.
Discussion.
Jim is gone, but this is actually the police department. This is standard procedure. How we do it, property is declared as surplus to be sold. We utilize a public website to ensure that we are meeting our fiduciary responsibility to get the most out of our assets, that we are able to do so. So this is following the procedure that has been well established and proven in the past. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No.
All right, thank you.
Motion and second. Discussion.
That's what that was.
Good discussion. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Fratelli,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Meehan,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Alternatives contract up for action.
Move to authorize the mayor to sign the Red Lodge City Purchase of Services contract with alternatives.
Second.
I'll wait. Okay.
I was just gonna ask you what you have for amendments.
There are no amendments. I was able to speak out and work with the judge, and you will notice that section 4A is significantly shorter than it was in the past. The discussion that we discussed at the last meeting was that the city was rather vague, and as we looked for comments, the initial suggestion from Alderman Mahan was wording in line with what we've had in the past, which is appointed by the mayor with consent of council. As I discussed it in follow-up conversation with the judge, he thought that it should be a council person, probably the one that was working with either the legal department or the police department. And so he suggested a council person will be designated by the mayor and approved by the city council for the board of Directors of Alternatives, Inc. And it is my understanding that is the only difference, as opposed to a rather lengthy paragraph before that said we'd appoint somebody and we'd give them 4 names, and if they didn't like any of that, they'd come back. This just says that the mayor will appoint a council person and that council will approve that. And so that change is reflected in the contract that I believe everybody has had a chance. I reached out this morning because it wasn't in our packets, and we were able to get a copy of that. So I hope everybody's had a chance to read that. But that's the only change, is that 4A reads as described. So my motion to approve is as presented.
Discussion.
Did it get seconded?
You did it.
Oh,
Roll call.
you kept talking and I didn't know if I.
Curtelli,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes,
Westwood,
Yes.
Westwood, yes.
good, wonderful.
On that line, then we need a volunteer from council to fill that position.
We need mayor to appoint somebody that, yeah. I know the judge's intent was that he thought it would be appropriate if it was a person that was either working with the law department or the police department.
And what about Tom? Speak right up,
How
Tom.
about Tom?
Does the mayor have your blessing to appoint you? They meet quarterly once.
Well, that doesn't leave much time, does it? All right.
Tom? You're it.
It's you.
You're it?
Okay.
Since it says with consent of council, I move to approve the mayor's designation of Tom Wyman as the city representative to the
Alternative.
Alternatives Board.
Second. Oh,
Discussion.
third.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Curtelli,
Yes.
Lyman,
You can vote for yourself.
Yes, I think so. I guess so.
Mahan,
Yes.
Westwood,
An enthusiastic yes.
Westwood.
Okay,
Make
good,
that for your
good
social
for Tom. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, move on to new business, city attorney contract up for action.
You start, move to approve employment contract for city attorney.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Mayor? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
In the brief time we've had to look at it, I just had a question. FLSA, exams. What is FLSA?
Do you know what FSLE is?
I'd have to read it in context.
It's exactly.
I was trying to remember what that
Put my
was.
disclaimer here, I'm not an attorney, nor do I plan to be.
We won't tell.
I do not know what that initial is to be exempt of. I'm sorry.
I can't,
Right offhand, I can't remember what it is.
Fair and Labor Standards Act.
Okay.
it must be a common thing because it was in Becky's contract as well, and
I think it was in the chief's also.
Basically, there's exempt from anything under standard practices. On letter A, under termination of contract, if the employer determines there is just cause for termination, employer may terminate the employee's employment with notice as permitted by law after probation period, and so that's 6 months. And who would determine what is just cause?
The mayor.
The mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that there are also, Montana has several specific employment things that would come into play because we are not a right-to-work state, and so there's other limitations and such there.
We work really close with our insurance company when it comes down to those things. They're the experts in that, their HR department. Dave?
We had a little bit of a conversation on this during the work meeting. I stated my position there that I do believe the mayor has the right to make appointments. I also believe strongly that as a council member, we have a responsibility to when we authorize the mayor to sign a contract, it should be a contract that we've had time to review. We got copies of it 6 minutes prior to the meeting, and I'm sorry, as much as I pride myself on being a rapid reader, when you count the attachment with the description, I made it through 3 pages of what is basically 9 pages of possibly 10, depending on count that, and I was not able to do it. So I will not be able to, in good conscience, vote to approve a contract that I haven't reviewed. I feel that's one of the things that the constituents expect of me, and I think rightfully so. I understand that there are a couple of council members that were involved and have had a chance to read the contract, and I would certainly not begrudge them for voting, but having not read it, I'm not comfortable voting to approve it. And that's just my position on it.
Tom?
2 questions. This contract is essentially the same contract that the city has had with previous attorneys. Is that right?
It's Becky's contract.
Yeah, I
Other
think,
than what the mayor has.
Okay.
right.
explained
Her
today.
original contract allowed her to do, other legal work in
Right.
her own practice. When we renewed that for another 2 years, we took that out.
Has Mr. Butler already seen this contract?
Yes, he has.
He's already signed it, if you get back that far.
Okay. My feeling, again, is that for the police department, for the city employees, it's extremely important that we have a contracted attorney to handle things on a timely basis. And I foresee that this summer, with all that's going on, we could see considerably more action out in the streets that's going to require somebody to supervise this. So I'm totally in favor of getting it, passing it.
Teresa?
So you mentioned the start date would be June 28th.
Correct.
We discussed with this individual. And so, whether or not I vote either way, you don't have enough votes to, if Dave is inclined to vote no tonight, is there any detriment in having this up for action, emergency? I understand next week is a working session. Should we take emergency action on the approval of the contract on the 22nd so that he could still start the 28th, just to give time for everyone to see the contract?
I'll leave that up to council.
That's why I'm just thinking out loud, but
Can I just clarify on the motion though? It's not a resolution or a ordinance. And you guys approved the council rules and procedures to follow that you need 4 affirmative votes for resolutions or ordinances.
Yeah.
Not a motion.
right.
Not for
The majority, in Robert's rule, it's majority.
The charter does specify specifically, the charter does specifically say ordinances and resolutions are where 4 is required.
Mm-hmm.
So if the rules of procedure were modified and adopted to say that it requires a majority in other actions, then that is the rules that we're operating under. I like the suggestion of postponing this, and I would be okay with doing it as, I would just feel better about reading through the contract. I would also feel better, honestly, if we had outside, I know when this contract was originally drawn up, my additional recommendation, and at the time, it was to take the city attorney out of the spotlight, to have it written up by somebody other than the person who was there, because contracts are construed rather heavily against the author if there's ever debate and discussion. And I thought it would have been appropriate if that had been reviewed by an outside. So again, not only have I not read it, but even if I read it, I'm not an attorney. I would be happier if we had an attorney look at this and say, yep, and we had a chance to review it and then put it on the work meeting, on the work schedule. I think that would be one of those justifiable purposes of having something on the work session.
Sam Painter was the original one that did the first contract.
Say again?
Sam Painter was the one that did the original contract.
That's not what my recollection is because I remember making that suggestion at the time and the answer was, no, I'm an attorney, I can do it. Okay, but I did it.
Who made that? Who said that?
That was Becky who did that, that contract. And my intent at the time was specifically to protect her because I know that contracts are construed against the author. And she said, no, I'm an attorney, I can do it. And so I had made my suggestion and I voted in favor of that because my job was to offer the input and then go.
The original contract was done before any of us were on council.
Except,
And that was done by, except for Lori, and that was done by Sam Painter,
The very first.
the very first one, which this is just a continuation of that. Any other discussion?
Well, I know that Kelly's not here, and I know she'd appreciate seeing the contract, and she's just not here. We don't have the benefit of a full council, and we really haven't had an awful lot of time. Nobody can answer what FLSA is. You've answered what the acronym means, but I haven't had time to look into it. I don't know if it's standard or not, honestly. And to be exempt from every standard of, I don't know.
And in fairness, we have representation in the meantime. We're not left high and dry. This is, we have a drivable flat here.
No one's saying no to the person, it's just questions, it's just time to look at the contract. Call for the vote.
Let's call for the vote.
Is there not going to be public discussion?
Oh, we sure can.
Public comment on this issue?
Go ahead.
Stephanie Naftel, 1101 South Adams. I agree that we need a city attorney. I don't agree that we need any city attorney. And I think given what's happened with our previous city attorney, that the council and mayor should be a lot more meticulous and careful about how this decision is made. And I think a 2-year contract with an outgoing mayor in 2021 with everything that's happened is a terrible idea. And in the least, it should be postponed for a couple of weeks, in the least. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Kim?
Council 2103 Grizzly Circle, I think the state passed a 12-month probation period. I don't know if it's for these jobs, because I'm just looking at the nonprofit. That might help.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Michael Keys, 408 South McGillen. Obviously, everyone in the city, police also, to do their job well, would like to have as close to a full-time attorney as possible. For budgetary reasons, we'd all in the city like to see the person who's paid a little less come on board to save some money. We know we can use it. But I think I do understand some people's concern, which in any entity, you want to be able to review a contract before you vote on it. It just seems to make sense. My businesses will never sign a contract or approve one in my business without truly knowing everything that's in it. And I feel both sides of this, but I think to review a contract is a respectful request. That's just my opinion.
Any other public comment?
Well, my name is Kristen Cogwell, and I'm at 620 19th Street, and I appreciate the discussion, and I'm delighted that the work has been done to get a new attorney, but I think that there's a good, I personally wouldn't hire someone for 2 years without having any kind of a trial period, just because I've had, lots of experiences with and some things like that where it doesn't work out. I mean, could we do like a trial period with this contract and, you know, through December? And then we can see how he fits, and we can look at the budget and we can, see what's on the plate or how well he does.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Yes, my name's Angie Hazelsport, 301 South Hagen. And I agree that a trial period would probably be a really good idea. It was stated earlier that someone may not want the position if they don't have a contract, but it sounds like this attorney actually has a practice in town, so it's not like they'd be without a job at all if this didn't work out for them or it didn't work out for the city. And I also feel very respectful for the two council members that want to be sure they understand what's on the contract before they vote on it. I think that it's important that they understand before they're asked to vote on something. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Excuse me, I just would like to ask mention one more thing. My name is Christine Cosmo again. If I remember correctly, when I looked at the last city attorney contract, it just seems very one-sided because we're under the obligation to keep this person for 2 years, but they are not under any kind of a similar obligation, if I remember that correctly. Is that true?
Well, this is a comment period, so it's not a question. Any other comments? Jason?
Jason Wells, South Hauser here in Red Lodge. I just want to just address one thing. Everyone's talking about a trial period, you know, is there, you know, where we're not set. That's what probation is for, as set by state law. And you need to trust the people who manage them, which is the mayor, who hires and fires. When I came on, I was on probation for a year. Police officers are on for a year when we start. So I believe they would probably at least be on for 6 months. That is that probationary period, which is granted by state law, that everyone seems to be asking for. And I just wanted to assure people that that is there for that reason.
Thank you. I was just add one more thing, and I'm delighted to be in agreement with Chief Wells. However, I don't believe when you have a contract, I think that's the union contract, but I don't know that that's true for a contracted position with this kind of situation.
Any other public comment? Public comment. Roll call.
Point of order.
Yes.
I believe after public comment, it needs to come back to the table for discussion.
Go ahead, if you want to discuss.
I saw Teresa had raised, but while it's a discussion, I'd like to make a motion to amend commencement date in term C, where it says the contract shall expire on May 31st, 2023. I move to change that date to December 31st, 2021. I so move.
That's a year.
It is. It's basically in line with the probationary period. It just extends. It just caps the contract at a little bit over 6 months. But given that we haven't had a chance to review it, I'm offering that as a.
I wouldn't sign a contract for 6 months.
Wouldn't have to. That's the beautiful thing about contracts.
Oh, no.
So just a question on my part. So if you put it at the end of December, to renegotiate that, then we would be without a city attorney come January. Because usually we negotiate contracts before they expire. So that would still put it into this mayor's realm. is what I'm saying. So,
And we've had employees continue on that aren't under contract, and we've had contractors offer to fulfill the role of city attorney without a contract as well. And that's still one of my factors is, to me, we've got a very comparable price quote that comes without being tied to it. And I, like many, am just feeling a little bit stung after a few.
and I just had the question on that.
And I
That's
appreciate
how-
that.
Because the way our other contracts work, they're always discussed before they expire, so.
And to your point, we couldn't really, this doesn't mean the last date of employment would be December 31st. My
Usually when a
thinking is
contract-
just, that would be the end of said contract.
So I'm pretty sure going forward with Becky, it was gonna be, she was done. You guys never went further with that. I'm just asking, just a clarification on that.
No, and
If you
so
put it at that date.
is your
then going
recommendation
forward-
that I make it a little bit longer, like January 31st or February 31st? Yes, that was a joke.
No, well, I'm just saying, because it then, because you would
Okay.
negotiate.
So I will modify my amendment to say the contract shall extend through February 28th of 2022. And I appreciate the
I just
input.
had a question on it, so.
But a motion without a second dies,
I
so,
know we don't have a second, that's because I want to discuss something else.
oh, well, but this is, I stole the floor, sorry.
Well, we're still discussing your proposal. Would we consider, instead of that, a probationary period of 1 year? What jumps out to me is that if our chief of police has a 1 year probationary period, and that's a very important role, why wouldn't our city attorney have a year probation?
We need to discuss what the amendment was. I hear no seconds.
I hear no seconds either. Thank you,
Amendment
Mayor.
dies. Still open for discussion.
Extend probationary period from 6 months to 12 months.
Second?
Amend it to 12 months.
And we have a second on that. So, discussion on that.
Are we, so what we're saying, what this amendment is saying is, we're not going with the contract as it stands.
It just changed this number 6 to 12 is all the amendment is doing.
Instead of 6 months probation, it'll be 12 months probation.
My reasoning is that it's a significant role. It means a lot to the city. We all get that, as does the police chief's position. If your position requires a 12-month probationary period, why wouldn't the city attorney?
May I address that, Mayor? And again, please take my comments, I'm not an attorney, but from my understanding, the only probation that can be a year long, possibly, and it may be okay here, I'm not sure. I think that we're a year by statute because of the position that we have, and it takes so long to train us, that they give us here. And I would just maybe ask that you maybe get an opinion from an attorney, if it's even legal to do that, and it may be, I don't know.
This just points to the need for some time to get through this, truly, in my mind. 6 minutes before and trying to discuss this on the fly is very difficult.
And even the MCA cited in it, I'm not even sure how it applies to this particular, it basically talks about wrongful discharge from employment. And it's the basis for this contract. So I said, I've stated my piece.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Question, are we doing this as the roll call on the amendment? Because
The amendment died.
No, her amendment got a second.
Oh, okay.
On the 12th.
Okay, sorry, getting a little lost here. Let's have a roll call on the amendment.
Fratelli,
No.
Lyman,
No.
Mahan,
No,
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler.
Okay, back to the original motion.
So this is as written.
Any more discussion on it? Roll call.
Fratelli,
No.
Lyman,
I'm sorry, I've been lost here. What are we voting on this time?
We're voting on the contract.
As
Okay.
presented.
As
no
presented?
amendments.
Yes.
Yes.
Mahan,
yes,
Westwood,
No.
Whistler. No.
Okay. It dies. Let's move on to,
Mayor, on that action, can I propose that we do bring this at the next meeting for action as a work meeting?
I set the agenda, so
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay. That is fair.
Resolution 3578. CDBG grant. We had that at the work session. Any?
move
Take
to
a motion.
approve resolution 3578, authorization to submit CDBG planning grant application.
Second.
Teresa seconded.
Yep. Comments?
Mayor, move to modify the last whereas to specify a dollar amount. So the insertion would read, matching funding sources estimated to be 20 to 25,000.
Are you moving to amend?
Yes, I,
You didn't say the word amend.
oh, I thought, sorry. I move to amend the final whereas to say the matching funding sources estimated to be 20 to 25,000. So that's the addition is estimated to be 20 to 25,000. That's the only change to that amendment. That's just to clarify the anticipated dollar amount. It is still being met, being paid by RLACF. I so move.
Any seconds?
I'll second it just for the sake of discussion. Because I have a question.
Discussion.
I don't know that it would be 20 to 25. I don't see the purpose of stating that within the resolution. It could be 15. We don't really know what's going to come back, right? Are you going to set a range that does cap it at a certain amount when you put out the RFP?
I think it's probably better to do that if we're given a certain amount of money. I generally favor stating how much money is available rather than just letting the contractors bid without knowledge of what the dollar amount.
So could we put a not to exceed instead of just the range that's being proposed, for instance?
It wouldn't exceed 25 for the match.
Okay.
And I would be okay with that wording if you wanted to amend the amendment. And we did have estimated in there for that reason. So I guess we'll let the discussion, then I can modify amendment before we get to a roll call.
Discussion.
Move to amend my amendment to say the funding source is not to exceed 25,000 for the one-to-one grant. Did you?
I second.
Discussion on the amendment to the amendment. Roll call on the amendment to the amendment.
Fratelli,
No.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes,
Westwood,
Yes.
Whistler. Yes.
Back to the original amendment.
And I think I modified the amendment, so question, do we need to do a second vote, or is it just,
No, because you modified your.
yeah, so I modified it, so I think we're back to the original.
Back to the original. Discussion. discussion from the public comments on this. Public comments. Roll call.
Curtelli,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes.
Woodland, yes.
Use of city-owned land permit, Art Skills. We went through this through the work session.
Move to approve use of city-owned land permit for the Art Skills Labor Day Art Fair.
Did everybody hear that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Discussion at the table. Discussion from the public. Comments from the public. Roll call.
Curtelli,
Yes.
Lyman,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes.
Westwood,
Yes.
Woodland, yes.
Correspondence.
I have a comment that maybe under correspondence because a fellow from the USS Billings ship phoned me and asked about entering the parade on the 3rd of July. And he and I had a wonderful, long conversation, and there will be a contingent from the USS Billings in the parade on the 3rd of July. They will be in their white uniforms, and they will march in front of the rest of the veterans in the parade, kind of toward the front. Isn't that swell?
Great.
I think that's absolutely wonderful, and I told him so, and he got even more excited. So they will be here on the 3rd of July, and after the parade, the mayor from Billings, Bill Cole, will treat them to a barbecue up at his cabin, and then they will go to the rodeo that night.
Very good.
So that's just wonderful. I think that they're going to be here in Red Lodge.
And will they just be roping, or will they be riding the bulls as well?
I don't think so.
Oh.
And the bulls are in, if you're talking about the extreme bulls, that's on the 1st. They will be here on the 3rd.
Well, they could ride the normal bulls, I'd still pay for that.
I don't think they're bull riders. And we don't want them to be. We don't want them to get hurt.
Any other correspondence? How about number 11, Pete?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.